Hey everyone, welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Scott Mantz, and for right now, we would like to welcome my favorite show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. This is in season 4. In the first 3 seasons, the show has gotten over 20 Emmy wins, including Outstanding Comedy Series. And joining us for the conversation, we have actors Michael Zegen, Carolyn Aaron, Tony Shalhoub, and Marin Hinkle. Welcome, everyone, to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's conversation.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, so I'm just going to start off by just gushing about this show, which I've loved from the first season. And I feel like every season has gotten better and better. And this season has really been the best, season 4, because I feel like season 4 really has been a true ensemble. And Tony, is that a fair assessment? Do you agree?
I think I do agree. I feel like now that the show is so established, these relationships have become so complex and so interesting. I think as a cast, we've always felt with Rachel at our helm that we've been in an ensemble show. But I think this season, the stakes are heightened for all the characters.
Absolutely, Marin. I really want to continue on that note because we really get to see Rose spread her wings and really come into her own this season, and just as an actor to be in the 4th season of a series and really go places that are new, shaking up the dynamic. What was that like for you?
Amy and Dan are incredibly generous to allow for our characters to constantly be surprising to audiences, but also as actors to constantly have us get surprised. So I would never have predicted things like I become a matchmaker, or that I get to Oklahoma and give up all my oil money. And these are things that were, really exciting to not have ever been able to predict that I would get to work on. And so, yes, this last season to sort of drop into a person who thought she had a lot of money and had the security of that, suddenly have no money and have her husband not working any longer. Well, I'm sorry, Abe. I'm sorry, Tony. Of course you're working. You're working in a different capacity. Yes, those kinds of things were thrilling to work on.
Yeah, Michael, we really see Joel have his whole world shaken up here, but it really ways that I just found your chemistry with Stephanie Hsu just so amazing. I mean, what was it like to really go someplace new in season 4, especially with May?
Yeah, a lot of people, especially this season, they tell me, Joel's really evolved, and I mean that's what a character is supposed to do. If he was the same character that he was in season 1, then it wouldn't be that interesting. But yeah, and you say his world's been blown up, but he's the one who blew up everything. I mean, his leaving Midge was really the catalyst for the entire show. But that being said, working with Stephanie was amazing, and she fit right in. And I remember when she came in on the first scene that we did, she was talking like a mile a minute, and I actually said to her, I was like, "It's okay, you could chill out a little bit." But other than that, I mean, she just she fit. She's wonderful, and we had great chemistry, and I can't wait to see what happens in season 5.
Yeah,
I can't wait for the world to see what happens in season 5.
I was doing a Q&A with her for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I think I talked more about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel than about that movie, which is terrific. And Carol, one of the other things I really liked about season 4 is that we really see everybody together more often. And I love those scenes when everyone is together, including Susie. Alex Borstein is with y'all a whole lot more than she was in the previous season. So what was it like to have that dynamic and y'all playing off each other more often?
Well, I'm going to speak for everybody, and maybe not accurately, but it's my favorite when we're all together. I mean, this sounds like just sort of interview fodder, but we really like each other. And it's really a joy when we all get to be together. And, I always say, the pandemic was in my favor in a sense, in that once this show had to, when the pandemic hit and they kept saying to us, we're going to start back on this month, and which happened to everybody, which was the delay, kept being the delay. But everything had to be shrunk down. And I kept thinking, I wonder what the show's going to be, because it has such scope and such size. And I thought, are we all going to be in the kitchen? It'll be talking heads. Then we got the first script, and it started at Coney Island, with thousands of people. So I went, they have no intention of making this show smaller, even though they're doing it, during a pandemic. But I do think because we couldn't travel as a company and they couldn't go, it was sort of, when you think about it, kind of kismet that the end of the season, right before the pandemic, the whole rug was pulled out from under our heroine, and she had to start over, just like the rest of us, in a sense. Once we came back to filming, we all had to start over in a new configuration. And I think that gave room for all of the scenes of us being together. So that was really in my favor, even though I know this has been so tragic and trying for so many people. I loved the fact that the Maisels and the Weissmans got to spend a lot of time together. When you mentioned Susie, and you know how brilliant Alex is, there's people on this show like Alex who I've never had a scene with until we got to this season.
Wow.
Yeah, never, never saw Rachel perform, all of those kinds of things, because the show is maybe divided into her professional ambition and her domestic life. And Moish and I have only been part of her domestic life up until this point. So we didn't ever have any interfacing with Susie. So that was really fun.
You really touched on something that is so opens the door for so much in this conversation. And that is this, between season 1 and season 2 and season 2 and season 3, you had a break, and then you get back together and you start filming again. You have to get back up to speed. So between season 3 and season 4, not only did you have a longer break, but when you did get back, obviously things were different. And you really had to, figure out a different way of doing things and still just knock it out with just tour de force performances. So Michael, what were the challenges when you came back for season 4 to, despite all of the, let's say, the distractions of what you have to do now to make a TV show, to be like, this is all about the writing, this is all about the performance, and I got to stay focused?
Well, one of the things was, one of the challenges was remembering to take off your mask when you're doing a scene. We definitely had I think they actually had to edit some masks out in post-production. Not necessarily us, but, there were some background people and stuff like that. But also, and I think I speak for the rest of us when I say that I was rusty as hell. It does take a bit to get back to, where we were. We're such pros at this point of that speedy dialogue and that pace, and coming in, I didn't know what to do with my body. We had a year off. So it's more than that. Yeah, it was a real challenge. But after about a month, I think it was about a month or a month and a half, I felt like Joel again. And I felt like I had a good handle on it. And I think it shows. We also shot everything kind of out of order based on weather, because when we started filming, it was winter and it was supposed to be summer. So we didn't shoot the Coney Island stuff till much later. Was that May? Around May?
Yeah.
And I think you could tell the difference, because even though that's the first episode, you could tell we were definitely feeling it, and we were all on top of our game at that point.
How about for you, Marin? What was your re-entry into season 4 after A, the break, and of course B, the pandemic?
So much of comedy, at least in my experience, is about having confidence. And exactly what Michael said was true for me as well, is I felt myself kind of a little unable to be terribly funny, because I felt tentative about even the fear factor of, being safe with people. And we really did. In the past, we've had lots of rehearsal time with each other, and you hang out and you've got the crew around you. And all of us were asked to do our rehearsals, which is true in so many shows now. You do your rehearsal and then you're sort of scooted off. and then you have to like be brought back in, and as Michael said, you take off the mask and then kind of do the work right away. So I think that the hardest thing for me was to get back in that state of like believing that I actually was Rose. And I did a lot of rewatching stuff from the past. And then the other thing that was so generous about this cast, as Caroline alluded to, is we do really love each other. And so we had Zooms throughout the pandemic. We also got together and had meals outdoors. We also just made sure that we just really were there to support each other in the time that was not easy. So by the time we saw each other, the family was reunited.
You know, early in the series, there is a pivotal moment. I think it's at the Poconos where Abe sees Midge perform for the first time, and he is not happy. It really fractures their relationship for a little bit. The reason I bring that up, Tony, is because this season we see Abe and Midge on the same page. I love that scene when Abe and Midge are sitting down and he says, look at us both pursuing our art. So the reason I bring that up, Tony, is because what was that like for you to do a complete 180 in your performance and your portrayal of Abe?
Well, yeah, it's an excellent point. I think the writing all through from the Catskills forward for Abe, especially for me, you know, there was a sort of a natural progression. When he sees her perform, it's not just about, for me, it wasn't just about his relationship to his daughter, but it was really more about a kind of a seismic shift for him, realizing that there was so much in his life that he thought he was certain about and was, feeling fairly secure about and on top of. And this moment of seeing this person, his daughter, who he had kind of compartmentalized into a kind of a limited size box, except for her marriage unraveling, he finds out that he not only does he not know her, there's a lot he doesn't know, a lot about his world, a lot about the decade that he's living in, a lot about what's happening in terms of the structure of family and women, and it's a giant shift for him. And so when we kind of fast forward through season 3, and now we're seeing him on the floor, a little tipsy, having made a massive career change, he's thinking, he's humbled, and there's a role reversal. After being the provider for his whole life, his whole married life as a husband and father, now he's being taken care of. He's living under her roof and contributing a minimal amount to the coffers, and it's kind of a great equalizer. It's a great equalizer, I think, and it brings them closer and gives them more of a kind of mutual appreciation.
Is it fair to say that Abe is happier?
I think he is. I think it's taken him a while to kind of let go and release, and I think in a way he's come back to his core, to his true self.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. A lot of people have had to pivot over the last couple of years. Marin, and that scene, going back to the Catskills, also comes back to Rose, because this time it's Rose who sees Midge perform. And it's just amazing how it all kind of comes together. Like if you've been paying attention from episode 1, it all comes together. So what was that like to sort of be where Abe was? Now that's where Rose is, with her like, oh, so this is what my daughter does, kind of thing.
Right. It's been thrilling over the years to take in all that Rachel does on the show. And I've had to do this like duo focus of like, well, Rose doesn't know what's going on with her daughter. Rose can't celebrate what she does. So when I actually went to the Wolford, I chose as an actor to not step foot into that incredible theater until the moment that Rose steps foot in it. And so the whole idea that she was in this kind of nightclub with this burlesque and these strippers and the whole thing, it really kind of, it could sort of dive in a very honest way. And then when I got to go and do this crazy hypnosis and this magic show, that was also extraordinary as a challenge for an actor, because let's just say that stand-up is not my strong suit. Let's just say I've never done it before. Let's just say I don't need to do it again. I'm in such awe that those people who get up in the world and do it. Now Rachel, who does, and Rachel was incredibly generous. Those of my cast that were working that day remember this. She would get up and give me little bits of advice because I, of course, had to imitate her and just sort of ask, maybe you need to lean forward a little, or you do your arms a little bit more like this. You can drop your voice, you can breathe, and you can actually trust that the audience is going to laugh even if you're not funny because they're paid to do that. So that kind of stuff was so much fun. And again, back to something that Amy and Dan, at one point, like a couple weeks before we got the script, said, "You're going to be doing stand-up." And I went, "No, I'm not." And then they were like, "Yes, you are." So that was just incredible and a delight.
Well, Carol, what makes Amy and Dan, what makes the two of them great actors, producers, and directors, of course? What makes them just the quintessential, EPs, showrunners that are just bring out the best in their cast?
Well, first of all, this is a single vision show. And traditionally, television has been configured by committees of people. And I'll tell you that at one time in my career, my agents called me and said, "You're their first choice." Unfortunately, this time they're going with their second choice. I mean, but that's really a true thing. When you have 5 people deciding on something creative, not everybody's going to have their same first choice. So everybody has to throw that choice out until there is consensus. This is so their vision. We have so been invited into their dream. And thank goodness I got that invite. I'm so pleased about it. So I'd say one of the things is that, for better or for worse, they have a vision, they stick to it, and they share it with their audience and with their actors. I also think that they have incredible taste in actors. They seem to really like people who've had experience in the theater, for their writers and for their actors. So everyone comes with a certain sense of discipline, to the table. I've never seen anybody on this show, from the smallest part to the biggest part, that doesn't have a work ethic that starts with them. Their work ethic is incredible. And you feel like you have to just live up to the standards that they've set with the writing. I mean, it really is the writing, isn't it? The play's the thing. It always has been. It always will be. And you have to work, you are being given a bar that's very high. I always think that, a lot of an acting career, I think that for those who've been at it as long as I have, is a lot of times you're making a mountain out of a molehill. And this time we've been given a mountain to climb. And I think we're all really grateful for that, because that brings out the best in you when you get that kind of challenge. And we don't often have that. Do you know what I mean? I've been on TV shows where I go, in one scene, he's my cousin. And then 5 minutes later, I say, "Nice to meet you." And if you say to the writers, "But I thought he was my cousin," they went, "Oh, nobody will notice that." And you're constantly trying as an actor to kind of figure out, you never, ever, ever in this writing feel like you have to cover something up, that you have to go right in order to go left. It's quite amazing. You just have to keep living up to what they give you, in a sense. And I think one of the things that makes them so great at what they do is that they're not insecure about what they're doing. If they stumble, they stumble, but they're going to stumble on their terms. And that's a lesson, I think, for all of us.
Absolutely it is. Michael, 2 of my favorite scenes in season 4 are one's with you and Stephanie. The other is with you and Rachel. The one with you and Stephanie is where May tells Joel that she's pregnant. And then the other one is when Joel tells Midge that May is pregnant. So, but the way that both of those scenes play out are completely different, because the first scene between Joel and May, there's like a dance, the banter, the dialogue is very, very quick. And then the scene with Joel and Midge, when he tells her the news, she has a reality check, everything gets very real to her. So my question is, what was it like filming the scene with Stephanie? And then what was it like filming the follow-up scene with Rachel?
To be honest, I don't remember if we filmed one before the other. No, I think we did. I think that was the case. But yeah, I mean, that was such a surprise to me. I had no idea that was going to happen, that Stephanie's character May was going to become pregnant. I had no idea, and that was because, to be honest, I was sort of wondering where this was going, you know. And I even asked Amy at one point. We were filming a different scene, and I think I said something to her, and she was like, "Well, May's going to get pregnant," and I was like, "Oh, okay." That's. I think it was more like, how does Joel fit into the sort of main plot line for the year? And this is something that certainly will affect Midge. I mean, you know, because they basically share a life together, despite the fact that they're not together. But yeah, I mean, you know, they were both equally amazing scene partners, both equally amazing, you know, amazingly written scenes. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, it's the writing. It all boils down to Amy and Dan. But yeah, it's a great scene. It was probably the scene with Rachel was probably my favorite of the season, especially just because, like I said, like, you know, this affects her just as much as it affects me, and I think you saw that. I think, you know, you saw her shock, and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. When I was rewatching it, and yes, I did rewatch season 4 because, of course, I did. I love the show, and you pick.
I need to rewatch it, actually.
I think you do, because I'll tell you, this is a show that there's so much going on that you pick up things that it's not that you didn't notice it the first time, but it resonates deeper the second time you see it. Such as, you know, I was thinking about, especially the scenes between Abe and Midge is the evolution of Rachel's performance. You know, you were talking, especially Michael, about how, you know, there was a longer break and it was a year off and you got to kind of get back up to speed. But what I want to know, and I'm going to ask this to you, Tony, is what's your take on the evolution of Rachel's performance from season 1 all the way through now to season 4?
Oh, I mean, Rachel is extraordinary. I don't even know where to begin. She started out, I thought she just started out hitting home runs in every episode. I've said this before too. I was always amazed that because she was like something like 26 when we started. Is that right, Marin? I think she was when we did the pilot anyway. And I was just struck by her fearlessness, her confidence, without being without in any way having her ego become, you know, get in the way or become an obstacle on any level. But I just thought, God, when I was 26, I had zero confidence, you know, and that definitely impeded my work. I still don't have as much confidence as she displayed in those, you know, early years. And now that she's kind of come into her own and she's been, again, by this brilliant writing, been given these opportunities to play so many different complex kinds of scenes in terms of her, you know, her role as a mother, her role as a wife, ex-wife, lover, as a role as a budding professional, her role as a young woman in the late 50s, venturing out of the domestic kind of comfort zone into the workforce when she worked for the Altmans, whatever. Rachel has somehow taken on all of these challenges and just exceeded everyone's expectations, I think. I mean, you mentioned earlier the scene where I first see her doing stand-up in the Catskills. That scene, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, you know, what she was doing on that stage, I was sitting there as Abe watching this performance, but as me, as Tony, watching my fellow actor do this very complicated performance where she is trying to cover, you know, she notices me in the audience she's trying to cover for herself, but she cannot stop herself from going, dirtier and bluer
Brilliant.
and it's just a tightrope walk. I was astonished by what she was able to pull off. And I don't know.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. I'll tell you that in season 4, there is that stand-up that she does, which is not like a comedy piece. It's darker. When she comes from the hospital and she's called to do her act at the Wolford, and she's talking about how men always sort of strut around and act like they're the strong ones, and then in a moment of crisis, like Abe, completely falls apart. In a moment of real, true life and death crisis. That piece, not going for laughs, but just being so centered and so the specificity and the clarity of that monologue, I just think it's just brilliant.
I completely agree. I want to ask, and it's something I've noticed about, especially in season 3 and now season 4. So I feel like Amy and Dan are doing longer takes. The takes are much, much longer, and there's more of them. So I want to ask all of you, starting with Carolyn, like, how do you prepare for those scenes? Like, do you do a bunch of rehearsal, and there's got to be some choreography involved in that too?
Well, there's a lot of choreography, and I think that's where a lot of theater training comes in, because it feels like you're in a play. It's a do or die, as opposed to a lot of times when you're on camera where they, cut it into such bite-sized pieces that you can't even feel the arc of what you're doing. And in those long, long shots, we could rehearse for hours before a camera was even up about where everybody's going to be. And the only thing about it that's so terrifying is it involves so many people. It's so choreographed. If you're the one that screws up, it's really not a fun experience. I can just tell you, to forget a line. We have to be really letter perfect, or say the wrong word is really hard, because, it affects, it's like that game Mousetrap, everybody gets affected when one person has one moment of forgetting where they are or what they're supposed to do. But, when I think it was even in the second season, we rehearsed before we even started shooting. And it was all that choreography. I think there's something, I could be wrong about this, but I think Amy and Dan are both extremely musical in their creativity. I think that they hear the music of what they're writing, and they see the music visually. There's a visual music to this show that they see very clearly and then pass on to us. I mean, nothing is random. Nothing is arbitrary. Nobody wanders around in and out. Anything that, people often ask us when the families are together, are we improvising? And the answer is a big fat no. Not even a comma is improvised. That even the overlaps is a kind of choreography where it's like what Tony said about Rachel, they're very specific about what they need and what they want. And that's really, it's very relaxing to work for people who know what they want. Do you know what I mean? It gives you something to really aim for, and it's a kind of comfort. You know where the bullseye is for them. So these long shots are like rehearsing a scene in a play.
We, going into these scenes, typically we don't even know that they're going to be one shot, these oneers. We have no idea. I mean, sometimes you could read a scene and you get a feel for it, and you're like, oh, okay, this is probably going to be a oneer. So I better really know these lines. Yeah. But then, especially in season 4, we did this scene at the hospital, and it starts with Tony coming in, and then he has the scene, and I come out with Rachel, and we have a scene in the hallway. And I think we all assumed that was just going to be split up, and it was going to be a long day, and then I guess I don't know. Somehow that turned into a oneer. Or like the baseball scene that I did in season 2, I had no inclination that was going to be all in one shot. I had no idea. I thought they're going to split it up and whatever. And how are they going to show us hitting baseball? But then, we show up and we're doing this dance and we're choreographing it. And what, Caroline said, we choreograph it, but to be honest, it's not like we come in a week early and choreograph it. It's on the day. We show up and, you show up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then you might not start shooting until 1 p.m. because you're trying to figure it out. You go left here, you open a door here, you talk to that person. It's like theater.
I just wanted to piggyback onto what both Caroline and Michael said. And it's not just the actors. It's not just choreography for the actors. It's right. It's the entire crew, that is involved in this, the Steadicam operator, the crew, the lighting people, changing lights during the scene. Lights are moving. Very unusual. Furniture is getting swept out of the way while you're moving from one. The Steadicam operator might be going backwards, by the way, carrying a rig through rooms, through doorways. It's an entire. It's the whole company. Doing a dance. So it's the actors, we like to pat ourselves on the back, but it's really without this crackerjack crew, it just would not be possible.
Well, everyone watching this conversation is going to pat you on the back too, because that is extraordinary. And I got to say, the genuine banter and the delivery of the dialogue, like it feels so natural and organic that I did assume, Carolyn, that this was some improv here, and you're shaking your head no, and I believe you. So that's my question next, and I'm going to start with you, Marin, is with all this dialogue, and I'm pretty sure you're all going to have different answers here. This may seem like a question that I'm surprised it doesn't get asked more often, especially in these SAG conversations, is how do you remember your lines?
Some people I think in this cast have photographic memories because they don't seem to even have to rehearse it. They get the script the night before and it's word perfect. That's not me. I have young people in my life. I have dear friends who have children who've been hired by me late at night to be on the phone. A very good thing is to have these Zooms and to be able to sit there and re-rehearse it and to sort of stage it. And then of course, once I get into rehearsal the next day, it's like whatever I thought I was going to be doing is completely not what we're actually doing. But it does take a lot of, care, maybe not a lot of sleep the night before. And also, a lot of respect and generosity from the cast when people are having a little bit of a hiccup. This, again, is such a supportive group that people are very loving with a hand on the back, like you can do it, we're going to be okay. But it is an incredible challenge, an amazing challenge. But one that, Tony was just saying that it is a dance. I was actually a dancer when I was young, and Amy Sherman Palladino was a dancer herself. And it is true. I think there was a quote that Spielberg or something had to Rachel once that is my favorite musical without music or something. And I do feel like there is this quality that the more you do it, the repetition with business, like if you were supposed to pick up the drink, then in putting that to words when we actually get to set that day, that does help with the lines. Do you guys find that too? That sort of memorizing at home at night is only so much you can do, but once you actually get there to rehearse with your actors and get the actual blocking, it sort of sinks in.
Michael, what about you? Do you have a trick to memorize lines? Because especially between you and Stephanie, there's a lot going on there.
No, there's no trick. As Marin said, we have each other's backs, and I think we've all been there where there are those days where it's just not sticking. I typically need 2 days for the words to stick, to really get it in there. And there have been times where that's just not possible. I mean, especially lately, it seems like the scripts are coming in later and later. And there have been those days where it's a real struggle, but I mean, eventually we get there, and there's a little thing called editing, which is always nice. But yeah, I will say this, and I don't know if everybody else feels that this way too, but the writing's so good that it's it's not hard to memorize these lines. Like I say I need a couple of days, and I need a couple of days in general for anything, but this show in particular, I mean, I've done shows, I did an episode of The Good Wife where I played a lawyer, and I just had no idea what I was saying, and I had a week to memorize this stuff and it still didn't stick. So, this stuff is just, I don't know, maybe it is that theatrical background. Maybe it's, I don't know. It just feels like I get it. I get the jokes. Maybe that helps. But it just feels like it flows. It's I think the writing's so good that it makes it easy for me.
Last question I have is, I know you're all filming season 5 now, and season 5 is the last. And have you started to sort of wrap your head around that and prepare for that? And are you ready sort of to say goodbye to the Maisels and the Weissmans? Tony?
I'm in total denial about the show ending. I just can't go there. It has been such a dream job. And I feel like I'm not ready. I'm not ready to say goodbye. I'm not ready to let go of the character. I think we all feel that way. Sometimes you can be involved in something, you feel like, well, this was a good run, we had a good ride, and now it's time to put it to bed because we don't want to drive it into the ground. And this is just this situation is not that at all. It's just, I feel like in some ways, I'm just sort of hitting my stride here. But they all have to end at some point, I suppose. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to that last episode and those last few days. It's going to be a rough road.
How do you feel about that, Marin?
I feel like I'm going to choke up just talking a little bit about it, but I agree with Tony. I feel like I'm just getting to know the character, and I've never had such a loving group of family, another family that I've been able to work with like this. And I know, actors are great-hearted people in general. I'm sure I can hopefully find, knock wood, another one. But this particular one, I'm not letting go of you guys. Just let you know, I've got a few plays I'm looking at where we can all play different kinds of characters. We can go to the South, or we can do some Shakespeare. But I can't let go of these people. I really can't.
Carolyn, as a veteran, how do you feel about sort of the horizon coming closer?
I feel the same way that Marin and Tony do. And for those of us who have been at this for a while, it's very clear this does not come around very often. And when something doesn't come around very often, you can't have an expectation that this is one of many. This is the only one like this. And it is, I feel the exact same way Tony does. These characters are so rich that I feel like there is still so much depth to plumb in terms of who these people are, and I don't want to be away from them. And I know that Amy and Dan have too much talent and too much class to stay too long at the fair, but I don't. I would stay until people just turned it off. I'm just saying. And I feel the same way that Marin and Tony, I think we all do, is that we are spoiled by each other's company. And now we're just going to have to put some effort into spending time together when this is over. How
about you, Michael? What are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I'm sad that it's ending, but you're all welcome to guest star on my Joel spinoff. And
thank you.
Shirley, I thought it was the Shirley Rose spinoff.
Oh, is that right? No, that's not what I was told. Maybe there's 2 spinoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to say I just adore the show to pieces. If I could sleep with this Blu-ray under my pillow, I would. But I want to thank you all for an amazing conversation here on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. And seasons 1 through 4, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, are streaming now on Amazon Prime. You watch it to your heart's desire, just like I do. And definitely watch season 4 for a second time, because you're going to get a whole lot more out of it. So thank you all so much, and see you next time.
Thanks.